Fans of yours have been wondering about new music for a while. So tell us a little bit about how Envy of None took shape.
Well, after the last Rush tour in 2015, I continued just working and writing very casually. I think sometime in early 2016 or late 2016, Andy reached out. Andy's an old friend and worked at our office, and he reached out with some material that he'd been working on, and he just asked if I would casually throw some guitars on as a reference for him. So I did do that, and we didn't really discuss much. Some time went by. He would throw in another idea here and there, but there was no sort of pathway that we were on until he met up with Maiah in a songwriters contest that she was one of the contestants, and they got to talking, and he recommended that she start working with other people. She Googled him, saw the Coney Hatch connection, said, well, why don't I write with you? He said, yeah, okay, we can try some stuff. And once he heard her vocals, he passed it along to me and said, there's something really special about this person. You got to hear this. I heard her voice. I used her for another project that I was working on with Marco Miniman from the Aristocrats. And then we started to attack those few songs that we'd sort of been developing with her. And then the last year, it's just sort of opened up, and we continued writing. Now we had a focus on doing an album together rather than just a few songs as an EP. And really this last year has been the bulk of the writing and production. In our minds, it's not a band. This is not a new band that we're starting or that I become part of. This is a project of 4 songwriters getting together and trying to make some great music.
I saw that you said Maiah was your muse. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Maiah and I seem to have this connection early on. When we started really getting into the meat of these songs and exchanging these files, there was something that was so compelling in her vocal treatment. The sensibilities that she has in the way she constructs her vocals, the ideas, the creative output she has is really remarkable. Typically I think singers would have 4 or 5 tracks, the main vocal, a double, and maybe 2 or 3 harmony vocals. She would send 20 tracks of vocals with all these little bits and pieces and affected stuff and clean stuff. It was just so rich in material that I often would listen to those sort of more extraneous vocal ideas that she had and get so much inspiration from that. And I would write very specifically to what I was hearing from her voice. And then it would go back to her, and she would update because she could sense that I was working around her, and she would sort of tweak it to work around me. And every time I got a file from her, it was like this. She was so inspiring to me. We seem to connect on a really strong musical level, and we are separated by quite a few years and experience. But there was something old world about her, and I may have known her in another life. It was that sort of relationship.
Wow. So how did this experience sort of differ from your early years coming up with Rush?
Well, Rush was quite an established band. I mean, we toured for 41 years. We had many, many albums. It was an incredible experience. We were a unit. We had a great love for each other. We really enjoyed working together. We laughed a lot, and we were a success in so many ways for that reason, that we just got along so well. I think maybe part of it is the fact we're all Canadians, and there's something that's in our nature to get along with each other, at least then. With this project, after the end of Rush, I wasn't quite ready to retire. I still felt we could have worked some more, and I think Geddy felt the same way. But for Neil, it was difficult. He had the toughest job of all of us, and the way he played, for 3 hours a night, full on, was unbelievable, actually. And we all could understand that he'd had enough physically. So moving on into the world of golf and other distractions, that was okay, but it's not very fulfilling. And then when this project came along, and as we got closer to this last year, I just felt so, I don't know, excited about working on something that I know how to do. I've done this for so long. And I thought, what the hell am I thinking? Why aren't I doing this all the time? This is what I've always done. So once I got into this groove and working here at home, and the pandemic forced us into this kind of situation, I just realized that it's time to shed myself of a bunch of things in my life and look forward more clearly and in a deeper, longer distance. And that's what's really happened. We had a house in the country, just got rid of it. I'm selling my guitar in an auction in May, the bulk of my guitars. All of these things, I'm sort of clearing house and starting this whole new direction in my life. And it's quite exciting.
I saw the auction news a couple of weeks ago on the internet, but I'm looking behind you there. And that looks like a lot of guitars.
Wow, I'm such an idiot. So I have 63 guitars in the auction. And after they went, I have pictures of all those guitars. And I was looking at them thinking, oh my God, I just all of them. What am I going to do? I'm sure I've got a couple of guitars. I kept a few here, there. And then I realized, oh yeah, I have a couple stashed at the studio. Oh, I have a few at the warehouse. Before I knew it, I realized I had 30 other guitars. So I guess I'll never have a shortage after I do another auction in 10 years.
I don't think I know the story of how you came to play the guitar.
It's nothing special. I was 12 years old. I was already interested in music, listened to a lot of music. My brother-in-law, my sister's 8 years older than me. So her boyfriend at the time had a guitar, just a classical guitar. And he lent it to me. And I noodled around with it. And he showed me a couple of things. But of course, I didn't know what I was doing or could play. But I was really interested. And I was listening to the radio every night, product of the 60s. And I begged my parents for a guitar for Christmas, and I got a very cheap electric guitar, and I would just play that thing for like every waking moment that I had. Started a little band with John Rutsey, who lived across the street, and another guy next door who played bass. And, we were just, that time, 12, 13-year-old kids being in a band. That was so cool. We learned how to play 4 or 5 songs, and we would play parties in people's basements for, and we didn't get paid, but we got a bowl of chips and a couple of Cokes, and that was good enough. And I can remember those days. I can remember playing in my own parents' basement at a little party for about 10 friends. And I can picture the room and the lights turned down and us playing. So it's a very rich life of music that started from that age. And I knew at 12 years old that music was going to be my life. I just knew it, and never thought twice about it, just accepted it and waited.
Wow, that's so cool. That's such a cool story as well to hear. Western Sunset, it's written for Neil. It's a really moving piece of music. Can you talk about the inspiration for putting that on the record as well?
It was written around the time that we found out that Neil was ill, and it was during a visit with him that it just struck me. I was sitting on his balcony, and the sun was coming through the trees as the sun was setting. He lived in Santa Monica, so the hills of Malibu were in the background, and the moment really struck me. It was very serene and quiet and calm, and we were all feeling this terrible weight of knowing how desperately ill he was. And it just seemed like the sunset represents that closure, and it just stayed with me. And my hope for the song was that I could at least get a sense of that peace and serenity that we felt when we were sitting together at that moment. It's also a good closer for the album because it puts you in a space where you can sort of take in all the music that you've just listened to and just catch your breath as it plays through. But yeah, it's a very, very deep song for me.
At the beginning of our conversation, you said you don't think of this as like a band. But of course, people will get to the end of this and then think, well, what else is coming? I think people will want to know whether or not you and Getty would ever reconvene and do anything together, whether Envy of None will come back with a new record fairly soon, whether you'll do something completely different on your own.
You know, I still have a few other projects that I'm working on personally for other people and friends. Envy of None, I have a folder here on my monitor that's got Envy of None 2 titled on it. So we have some ideas that we're throwing around even now. We really enjoyed working together, and it was a very, very healthy relationship, musical relationship, the four of us working together. So I think we'd probably pursue doing some more stuff together. As far as Getty and I are concerned, like we're best friends. He's working on his book. You know, I'm finished this. We try to see each other whenever we can. We still laugh a lot together and love being together. Whether that leads to something musical, well, we'll see. There's no pressure. Our friendship comes before anything. So we'll see.
It's been so long since the paper has spoken to you. I'm wondering, you know, what's your favorite musical memory in Toronto? As a kid, I think you guys shot subdivisions at Lamoureux Collegiate, which is near, I think I did swimming lessons there. And so that was a big deal because the older kids were like, you know, Rush, they were in here. But you grew up, you know, the band grew up here. So what's your favorite musical memory in the city?
Well, I just talked to somebody. I wish I could remember. It was a few weeks ago or a month ago. I met someone and he said that he was at that school and he was in that shoot. He was one of the students in the hallway. I thought that was so incredibly coincidental. God, you know, 41 years of touring, so many experiences. But in Toronto, you know, those early shows at the Gardens where we played the New Year's Eve show, and we usually did a few nights at the Gardens. Those were so exciting and so much fun. The crowds were amazing. It was so fired up to be there. Even the last time we played here on the R40 tour, we were very proud of the show that we did. The whole staging, starting from Clockwork Angels and working our way backwards, was really, really, I think, a cool idea. And I think the audience really responded to it. And that particular night was one of the best nights on the tour for us in terms of playing. So, yeah, I have a lot of memories of shows here.
Before I let you go, Alex, you mentioned the R40 tour. I'm wondering, I don't think we've ever asked you this or I've ever read anything about it, but what was your impression of that final show, the one in Los Angeles?
Oh, I mean, I do recall, you know, it's funny. It takes a lot of, it takes a lot of concentration to do a Rush show. So we don't really think about much other than the job at hand. But I have to say that night, I was looking around all over that hall. I was looking at the clock at the back. I was looking at the beams in the ceiling. I was just trying to take every little thing in that I could. I was looking at people in the audience who I've seen for years and years and years coming to our shows, from when they were much younger to being these mature adults. I don't know them by name, but I know them as fans. who have long supported us, maybe 20, 25 years. I've recognized those faces in the audience. Neil coming out from behind his kit, the first time ever in 41 years, he walked in front of his drum kit. You know, everything that happened that night was so profound. And walking off the stage and getting our arms around each other back to the dressing room, it was bittersweet for sure. But at the same time, even though we felt we could have gone longer, we've also felt that the legacy that we'll leave is based on the last thing that you do. And we had a great night on a great tour, a show that we were proud of, and we played really, really well. And that's the way I would like to be remembered. We were as professional as we could be right to the very end.